Hello and welcome back. So now in this video we will add scripts to our enemy so that he can walk, shoot, and then he will die, of course. So right here in the scripts folder we will create another new folder and let's name this as enemy scripts. Now in here we will create a C# file by the name of enemy. And now right here in the enemy, let's just drag and drop this script as you can see right here. Now simply just open the enemy scripts in the Visual Studio. So right here let's just remove the start and update function. Then right here we will create a variable which will be a private. So private transform, and we will name this as player target. After this we will create another one, so type serialized field, and then down below we will type private. This will be of type float, and we will name this as move speed, and by default the move speed will be 3f. After this we will create another one, so private vector 3, and we will name this as temp scale. Then right here we will add a serialized field again and then create another variable which will be of type float, and we will name this as stopping distance, and by default 2. Then after this we will create another one which will be a player animation, and right here we will add enemy animation. So the reason we are using the player animation or the enemy animation because they both will be the same, but we can create a universal animation, for example character animation, and then we can assign that to the enemy animation and player animation, but we didn't do that because already we have the player animation, so that's why we are using the player animation. Then right here we will create a awake function, so type private void awake, and inside this function we will say enemy animation, and this will be equals to the player animation, so type get component, then in here we will type player animation, that's it. And then right here we will say player target, and this will be equals to game object dot find with tag, and then in here we will call the tag manager, and in the tag manager we will call the tag which is player underscore tag, and then we will also get the transform, so type dot transform. So now after this we will create another function, and inside that function we will check if the player dies, then we will simply destroy the player game object. So this function will be by the name for search for player, and then add round brackets, curly brackets, and also let's just quickly call this inside our update function, so type private void update, and in here we can just simply copy this, paste it right there, and add a semicolon. Now right here we will say if the player target is not, so we will simply say return. So now if this happens, then the code down below will not be executed, because if there is no player then there is no use to run any code. So now right here we will say vector 3 dot distance, and the distance will be between the transform, so we will type transform dot position, So this is basically the position of the enemy, and the next one will be the player target dot position. And now if these two values are greater than the stopping distance, then what we will do, then in here we will say transform dot position, and basically we want the enemy to walk towards the player. So for that we will type transform dot position, and this will be equals to vector 2 dot move towards. So it will, the player, I mean the enemy position will move towards the player target, or you can say the enemy will work towards the player. So that's why we type transform position and then the player target dot position, and then we will set the walking speed for that. So we will say move speed and we will multiply it by time dot delta time. So the enemy will walk towards the player, and the enemy walking speed will be move speed, and we will multiply it by time dot delta time. This will basically make the movement smooth. Okay, the enemy movement. So let me just explain this a little bit. We use the vector 3 dot distance, and this dot distance will give us the distance from the transform position to the player target position. So for example, the transform position is point A, and then the player target position is point B, then it will give us the position between point A and B. And then we will check if that distance is greater than the stopping distance, then we will simply make the enemy to walk towards the player. So that's why we type transform dot position vector 2 dot move forwards. So now the enemy, this is basically the enemy, this transform dot position, and then this is the player. So the enemy will walk towards the player, and we use this move speed dot time dot delta. Okay, we multiplied by time dot delta, so this will basically smooth the movement of the enemy. So now as you know, the enemy is walking towards the player, so then we need the animation. Okay, the enemy walk animation. So for that we will type enemy animation dot play animation, and then right here we will call the tag manager, and then the tag name is walk underscore animation underscore name. Okay, so now let's just test this. If we save this right here and open up the Visual Studio, and right here the enemy game object, we need to add the player animation as well. So make sure to add the player animation as well. Okay, and as you can see right here, it shows an error. So we need to change this position to a small p. Okay, the position will start from the small p. Now let's just save it, and as you can see, the error is now gone. Let's just click on this clear. Now we have the move speed and the stopping distance, and this is the player animation script attached. So now let's just move this enemy right here, save it. Now let's just test the game, and you will notice that the enemy will walk towards the player, as you can see right here, but the enemy will not flip side because we need to type a code for that, so don't worry. But now as you can see, the enemy is walking towards the player, so it means that our script is now working. And also let me show you this thing. When the enemy approaches the player, as you can see, he still plays the walk animation. So we need to type a code. When the enemy approaches the player, then we will play the attack animation, and the enemy will attack on the player. So we need to add that, so don't worry, we will add that. But the first thing we need to fix is changing the enemy facing direction. So when the enemy is coming towards the player, then the facing direction will be this, but when the enemy is coming from this direction, then we will flip the facing direction. So get back to the Visual Studio, and right down below we will create another function by the name of handle facing direction, and right here the facing direction will be changed when we type the code. So this is for the handle facing direction, and then right here we will add a else condition, and this else condition is when the enemy approaches the player, then in the else condition we will type a code. So when the enemy approaches the player, he will attack on the player, so we will type that code in the else condition, but we will do that all in the next video. So see you guys in the next one.